Welcome to People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people, you have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.
Welcome to DEI Now, where we bring fresh voices, bold ideas, and transformative conversations to the front lines of equality in leadership. I am Pearl Phillip, and today we are discussing a vital yet often overlooked perspective in corporate America, the powerful leadership lens of Caribbean American women. In a moment when many organizations are rethinking what inclusive leadership really looks like, we are turning to someone who's been leading that charge for decades. Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown, organizational theorist, leadership strategist, and founder of KMB Consultancy, joins us to explore how cultural intelligence, community-rooted values, and radical self-care are reshaping what leadership can and should be. Get ready to rethink success, leadership, and identity through a lens of strength, strategy, and soul. Welcome, Dr. Brown. It is such a pleasure and honor to be speaking with you today.
It is such a pleasure, Pearl, talking with you as well. Thank you so much for this conversation.
You are so very welcome. So, Dr. Brown, you've spoken passionately about Black women, specifically Caribbean American women, navigating multiple worlds. How does that unique experience translate into leadership strength within corporate spaces?
You know, Pearl, moving between worlds isn't just about fitting in. It's about seeing things from different angles, right? And so I call this perspective agility. And so Black women, we naturally see challenges through multiple lenses at once. And this goes beyond diversity, really. It's about having mental flexibility that leads to better solutions. And so when you grow up switching sort of how you talk and how you explain ideas across multiple cultures and connecting different communities, you bring these skills like into the workplace, into every meeting, into every planning session. And Caribbean women shift between worlds so smoothly. I see it happening all the time, like reading rooms, like changing like how you speak, and even breaking down like really complex ideas for different people. This isn't just how you survive, it's like really how you lead. It's the edge, it's the crisp of how you lead. And I see this in the Caribbean women, that I coach very frequently. One leader that comes to mind, I work with, changed her company's whole market approach because she could see what customers needed through these multiple lenses in which she shows up at work every day. Her background gave her insight into the other things that people just miss. And so moving between like worlds isn't just about wearing yourselves out, just constantly changing. It's about the rich cultural background that gets ahead in today's business world. And, Black women, Caribbean women, we see the possibilities that others don't even notice.
That was so powerful. So you define cultural intelligence as a critical asset. How can companies better recognize and reward this skill, especially when it's embodied by women of color?
Let me be straight with you. Cultural
Please.
intelligence isn't a soft skill. Like, it's business smarts that affect the bottom line. just like period, full stop. Companies need to stop seeing it as like a nice to have and start seeing it as a must-have asset. You know, it should be in all leadership frameworks. It should be in performance reviews. It should be rewards for promotions. And too often, when Caribbean American women or other Black women, you know, show like our cultural intelligence, like the way that we connect teams and make like really complex ideas simple, or like identifying like gaps in the market, it just gets brushed off as like, oh, you know, she's just really good with people, instead of seeing it as like a strategic leadership idea. And so I help companies really think about and reshape their talent systems to actually name and reward what cultural intelligence is. It's not nice, it's not soft. And so one nonprofit organization that I worked with in New York, where a lot of Caribbean people live, they added cultural intelligence to their leadership reviews, and they began to track how well leadership could change their communication styles, like how well leaderships built diverse networks, not just with people who look like them, and how they actually explain complex ideas, not just to the people who look like them, but also to different groups of people. And within a cycle, they saw better teamwork, they saw better and faster problem solving and more creative solutions. So, and there's also this accountability piece that I like to mention too. So if company values cultural intelligence, they have to tie it to compensation, right? And so, and also creating like clear paths for people who actually show it. So it can't just be, oh, well, that's great. And so people who actually show it, how do you move them ahead? How are those the leaders of the organization? And when Black women and Caribbean women share, you know, their thoughts, how are those people moved? And so cultural intelligence is not just about somebody being aware, it's about using that knowledge to drive business results, the bottom line. And companies need to, you know, get this in a way. And when they do, they have a big head start and a competitive edge in today's global market.
Okay, so many Caribbean cultures emphasize collective success. In what ways does this community-centered vision challenge the typical corporate emphasis on individualism? You're smiling.
It's almost antithetical because the Caribbean focus is on shared access, and that creates a very different leadership style than what's usually rewarded, not just in corporate America, but most organizations that do business in the US. And so most organizations really celebrate like a hero leader, you know, one or two, you know, people at the top who which drives individual results. But Caribbean American women often bring, you know, a community-minded leadership, and they naturally ask not, will this make money, but who also wins and who loses by this decision? So they're thinking about it holistically. And this community mindset is antithetical to corporate, organizational, or individualism in very powerful ways. And so I, you know, I know it builds more lasting business models. When leaders think about the wider impact, they make choices that benefit groups of people and not just, you know, individual shareholders or executive leaders for those non-corporate organizations. And this creates stronger ties with community. Employees are more committed, and businesses are actually sustainable longer. And then I think it's also signals how we handle crises and challenges. Like in the Caribbean tradition, communities, they weather storms, right? Both real and figuratively. And so when businesses are challenged, leaders with this mindset don't just retreat to their part and figure out, well, how are we, going to survive and save just section right here. They strengthen connection. They tap into the whole groups of wisdom and just think like, who has this part? Who has this part? How do we do this together? And so when I work with Caribbean leaders, and there's one in a healthcare company that comes to mind that faced a major market disruption, and instead of doubling down on control and hierarchy like most people would, protecting their silo, she created solution circles that brought diverse viewpoints from across the hospital, and the ideas that came out saved millions and put them way ahead of their competitors in the city in which their system operated. And this was a community approach, and it also changed mentorships and sponsorships within that system. And so instead of keeping opportunities to themselves, like Caribbean American women, they often create paths for others, which is very different from other types of leaders. And so, like I tell my clients all of the time, real leadership is not about climbing alone. It's about building ladders so others can come with you. And organizations that are doing business in America and corporate America, they need to understand that shared success should not be in competition with business results. It actually is a key to lasting performance. And organizations that actually embrace this, I mean, we see it in the results, this community-minded approach. They build stronger cultures. They have more solutions that are creative and innovative. And in uncertain times, they can weather the storm. And let's be honest, we are in some uncertain times right now. And
We definitely are.
tell those organizations that are more community focused and minded and those that are just out for themselves.
So you often highlight the importance of resilience and resourcefulness. Can you share a story where a Caribbean American leader turned systematic barriers into innovative solutions?
Yeah, I work with a Caribbean leader I was working in a senior advisor capacity for a leader in a tech company who just kept hitting a barrier or a ceiling because they were getting passed over for top roles again and again. I mean, like that ever happens, but the feedback was always vague, and it was not enough like executive presence, or it wasn't the right, sort of cultural fit. And we all know what that means.
We do.
Yeah. And so instead of trying to fit herself into the narrow box or internalizing these messages that, she was not enough, she drew on what folks in the Caribbean usually say, making something from nothing. So she saw that tradition, the traditional path to the C-suite wasn't going to work. And so she created her own lane, right? She used her technical expertise, and oh my gosh, she was like one of the smartest tech people that I knew, and her cultural smarts to spot like market opportunities that others missed. And so there were some technology solutions for some community base organizations that were ignored by all of the technology companies in the state. And instead of waiting for permission, she built a business case. She gathered some insights from the community. She had connections through their church. She had connections through their community recreation activities that no one else was talking to. And she brought all those supporters from across the company who really cared about technology and not like the hierarchy. And the results she created, and she led an entire business unit that made $50 million their first year and a half. I mean, that was impressive. And what they had seen as her weakness on not fitting in and not having the presence was what actually moved her ahead. And that was her biggest strength, right? Her connection, her cultural perspective and community connections. She didn't just get around the barrier, she changed the whole playing field. And what
Change the game.
she changed the game. And what I love about the story is that she didn't win by hiding sort of who she was. She won because she embraced it. And oftentimes it would just sort of change into what people want us to be, and that's not who we are. And so she used that Caribbean approach to turn just to turn the tables. And she used creativity, she used community networks, she used problem solving to turn those limitations into opportunities. And this is what I mean by resilience and resourcefulness. So not just surviving broken systems, but reimagining and rebuilding them, and not just fitting into the spaces, but transforming them through, I would just say it was cultural brilliance, right?
I love that, cultural brilliance. So storytelling is central to many Caribbean traditions. How does this practice show up in the boardroom, and why should more leaders embrace it?
I tell you, Caribbean storytelling is not just entertainment, and I love to hear Caribbeans tell stories. It is how Caribbean people share their knowledge. It's how Caribbean people keep their history alive, pass down values, and again, make some really complex ideas easy to understand. And in business, this means taking complicated data and market trends and just turning them into stories that make people do something differently. And I've seen Caribbean American leaders use storytelling to do what these long slide decks with a bunch of words on it and data dumps can't. And they create an emotional connection to strategy. And so one leader that I worked with spent months sharing market data trends, and it got ignored because it was so boring. It didn't connect to people. It didn't connect to nothing. And so she switched to storytelling, and she created a story that followed the customer's journey through changing market, bringing both challenges and opportunity to life. And the story made what was like abstract and graphs and charts and numbers. And the board not only approved her plan, but also increased her budget. And that is a win-win. And that's the power of storytelling. And so it works especially when talking across people who don't look like you, right? And the use of like metaphors and all the different sayings that Caribbeans say, and in their unique accent and tone and the sensory language and the cultural references, it just makes complex ideas clear and diverse. And sometimes it's just funny, and it just brings laughter and joy in the room. And knowing how to read the room and adjust the message without losing people, like I've seen that happen, and that is so powerful. And not everybody can replicate that. And so there's also wisdom in how Caribbean stories are built. They often have these really complex rather than oversimplified answers. And in a business world obsessed with like really quick fixes, this nuanced approach actually leads to a better strategy. And so I tell leaders to use strategic, storytelling and, craft stories that highlight challenges, but you have to inspire action. Like you have to ask people and encourage people to do things differently. And you also have to unite people around like shared goals, because if everybody's still doing their own thing, everybody's still doing their own thing. And so again, it's not about entertainment, but it is entertaining, and it's about transformation, and it's about making strategy stick, not just in people's mind, but if you can connect to their heart. And that's what Caribbean storytelling does. And so in a world of information overload, like we're getting data from everywhere all the time, and most recently it's just like stuff you don't want. The leader who can tell a compelling story and who can make meaning of really complex information, it just has real power. So that's why more leaders should try with Caribbean storytelling, and true to it, and not just appropriate it for their own personal gain, but use it as a strategic leadership tool.
Okay. So radical self-care is a powerful term you use. How does redefining self-care as a leadership strategy shift the way we think about sustainability in high-pressure environments?
Hmm. I use the term radical self-care on purpose because it challenges the corporate worship of burnout. And let me be clear, I learned this the hard way. Early in my career, like I wore the badge of honor from being overworked. It's like I did this, and this, and I did this. So I was running myself into the ground, and for what? To prove that I belonged in spaces that were not built for me? Like that's crazy. So radical self-care isn't a luxury. It's a leadership must-have. And when I talk about self-care, it's more than just spa days and bubble baths. Like those are nice to have. I'm talking about,
They're nice.
yeah, the basic shift in how we relate to ourselves and our work and our purpose for just being. And for Caribbean American leaders and Black women, this means using like the cultural tradition of rest and renewal. And it means knowing that our well-being is directly affects our communities and our families. And it means rejecting these false choices of taking care of ourselves and being successful. Like you can do both. They both can exist. And like I now live by a rhythm, not by reaction. Like I get up with the sun, I'm mindful about how I start my day. I move my body, I listen to good music, I try to get to the water as much as I can. And these aren't separate from my leadership. Like I can't lead if I can't do these things, because it helps with my clarity, it helps with my vision, it helps with my impact. And it comes from a grounded approach. And when leaders model this kind of self-care, I mean, they also signal to others that this is important too, and it changes the organization culture. There's one woman that I coach when we started working together. She was known for sending emails like at 2 a.m. and working through the weekends, and her team was burning out, and she was committed to radical self-care like halfway through our contracted period of working together. And it was crazy, but she needed to be convinced to actually take her vacation time and to set boundaries around like when she would send emails. Like if you're gonna send emails, schedule them to go out at 8 o'clock. Don't have them go out at 2 o'clock. But the result, like her team productivity, it went up drastically, and her turnover on her team, it dropped significantly, and people were not just surviving, they were actually thriving and doing well on her team, which was different from when we started working together. But the radical part of self-care is that it challenged the very systems that demand that we drain ourselves. And that's the thing that I like for people to know. It says that I refuse to participate in my own exploitation. You know, it recognizes that rest isn't a reward for productivity, that it is required. Like, rest is required for me to be productive. And in high pressure workplaces, this shift from glorifying burnout to prioritizing sustainability just help individual leaders. It creates more innovation, more resilience, and that's ultimately improves the bottom line. And so clarity comes from care. And I've learned that I can't be a transformative leader if I'm not taking care of myself. You know, when they say on the airplane, put your eyes
Put on your mask first.
first, because if something happens to me, I can't take care of y'all, right?
Exactly. So your RISE framework encourages leaders to redefine success and evolve continuously. What advice do you have for Caribbean women or any underrepresented leader looking to lead authentically in today's changing corporate climate?
Ooh, my RISE framework. I love my RISE framework. Let's see. My RISE framework: redefine success, innovate disruption, synergize roles, and evolve continuously, is really all about authentic, transformative leadership. And my advice to Caribbean women and other underrepresented leaders starts with this: lead as you are, brilliantly and with vision, and not as others expect for you to be. And so first, redefine success beyond personal achievement to a group vision, and ask yourself, how am I building paths for others to rise? How am I changing systems, not just existing within them? Real success isn't about climbing alone. It's about creating new paths and bringing others along with you. Second, stop trying to fit into leadership models that were not your models to fit in, right? We've been taught to compartmentalize and leave like cultural wisdom, like our community values, and really our authentic selves like at the door. But our power is integration. Our leadership is our true leadership is when it comes alive, when we show up fully, when we bring our ancestors like resilience, our community values, our own vision of who we are becoming into every room that we enter. I would say third, build strategic, not supportive relationships. So don't just build community around pain or trauma or crisis. Build community around power. Create intentional connections with people who can amplify your vision, sponsor your advancement, especially when you're not in the room, and partner in transformation. And remember to nurture relationships outside of work that actually feed your spirit and remind you who you are. Because sometimes we can slip up and forget with all of the pressures of performing. And fourth, I would say something around liberation, like practice liberation, not representation. Right? So too often we focus on gaining access to power, within oppressive systems, but true leadership, in my belief, is about practicing freedom and challenging unfair organizational cultures and practices and these expectations to assimilate and the refusal to just perform at the cost of being well. And so liberation for me is about leading from a place that is true to like who you are. And I would say finally embrace radical self-care as a leadership must have, like a non-negotiable. Listen to your body, like honor your spirit needs, set boundaries to protect your brilliance, and remember like clarity, creativity, and courage. You don't get those if you're not like well nourished. And right now, DE&I commitments are being tested and systems of inequity are being like shored up and reinforced. Authentic leadership isn't about, just what you can personally gain and do. It's about like a collective transformation. It's like, what can we do together? It's about the courage to lead differently and bring all of you, all of your cultural brilliance into spaces that desperately need new models of leadership, because what we have right now is not going to cut it. And Caribbean American women and Black women have always been the architects of freedom. They've been builders in communities and villages and countries even, and the carriers of wisdom. And in today's workplaces and corporate climates, it just didn't need us to be there because we're there. They need our fullness, all of our fullness, all of our authenticity, all of our transformative leadership. So we have to lead as we are, because when we do, our power reshapes everything that we touch.
Dr. Brown, you are absolutely brilliant. This is so amazing. How can one get in touch with you?
You can reach me on all social medias at Dr. Kerry M. Brown, and on my website, or through my website at kerrymitchellbrown.com.
Thank you so much. Today's conversation with Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown reminded us that leadership isn't just about position, it's about perspective. Caribbean American women bring a leadership model built on cultural wisdom, resilience, and collective care. It's the kind of leadership we need now more than ever. If you are an aspiring leader, take this to heart. Your lived experience isn't a barrier, it's a blueprint. Embrace it, lead with it, and as Dr. Brown says, lead as you are. Thank you so very much. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people, you have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.